Have you ever witnessed a moment when someone's cruelty backfired so spectacularly that it changed everything? Picture this. A grand ballroom filled with 300 of the wealthiest people in New England, crystal chandeliers casting golden light across designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, and there on a raised stage in front of them all sits a woman in a hotel maid's uniform at a gleaming Steinway grand piano. Her hands are trembling. The billionaire who forced her onto that stage is smiling, certain she's about to be humiliated in front of everyone. But what this billionaire doesn't know is that she's made the biggest mistake of her life. Because the woman at that piano is about to reveal a secret that will silence every person in that room and turn one woman's moment of cruelty into her own public downfall. This is the story of Naomi Wright. And what happened that night wasn't just revenge. It was redemption. 6 weeks before that unforgettable night, Naomi Wright was doing what she did every morning at 5:30 a.m., pushing a housekeeping cart down the hallway of the Grand Azure, one of the most exclusive luxury hotels in Boston. At 34 years old, Naomi had been cleaning rooms at this hotel for the past 8 years. Her uniform was always pressed, her smile always professional, even when her feet ached and her back screamed from the endless cycle of making beds, scrubbing bathrooms, and replacing towels for guests who never looked her in the eye. Naomi was a single mother. Her 9-year-old son, Isaiah, was the center of her universe. Every morning before her shift, she'd drop him at school, and every evening she'd rush home to help with homework, make dinner, and tuck him into bed with a story. The money was never enough. Between rent for their tiny apartment in Dorchester, Isaiah's school, supplies, groceries, and the mountain of bills that seemed to grow every month, Naomi was always walking a financial tightrope. But she never complained. Not out loud, anyway. The Grand Azure was the kind of place where rooms started at $800 a night, where guests expected fresh orchids daily and 24-hour butler service, where the lobby featured a concert grand piano that cost more than Naomi would earn in 5 years. And it was owned by Catherine Blackwell, a woman whose wealth was measured in billions, not millions. Catherine had inherited a real estate empire from her father and had grown it into something even more massive. Hotels, office buildings, luxury condos. The Blackwell name was everywhere in Boston. Catherine was 50 years old, impeccably dressed, and absolutely ruthless. She had ice blue eyes that could freeze you with a glance, and she treated her staff like they were invisible. Or worse, like they were disposable. Her son, Brandon Blackwell, was 32 and followed in his mother's footsteps. Arrogant, entitled, and completely dismissive of anyone he considered beneath him, which was almost everyone. Naomi had learned to stay invisible at the Grand Azure. Keep your head down, do your work, don't make eye contact with the guests or the Blackwells. It was safer that way. But every single day when Naomi pushed her cart through the lobby, she had to pass that piano. That beautiful, gleaming instrument sitting there like a monument to everything she'd lost. And every single day, for just a moment, her chest would tighten and her eyes would sting with tears she refused to let fall. Because that piano represented a life that had been taken from her. A dream that had died 12 years ago. 12 years ago, Naomi Wright wasn't pushing a housekeeping cart. She was sitting at a Steinway grand piano in the prestigious Berklee College of Music in Boston, her fingers flying across the keys as her professor watched with tears in his eyes. At 22 years old, Naomi was what they called a prodigy. She'd started playing piano at age 4, taught by her mother, who had been a music teacher. By age 7, Naomi was performing at local recitals. By age 12, she was winning state competitions. And by age 18, she'd earned a full scholarship to Berklee, one of the most competitive music schools in the world. Naomi wasn't just talented. She was extraordinary. Her professors said she had something rare, an ability to take a piece of music and pour her entire soul into it to make the piano sing in ways that moved people to tears. She practiced 6 hours a day, sometimes 8. Her apartment was tiny, barely more than a closet with a piano crammed into it, but she didn't care. She was going to be a concert pianist. She was going to perform at Carnegie Hall, at the Kennedy Center, in concert halls around the world. Her future was bright and certain. Her parents, Thomas and Diana Wright, were so proud of her. Her father worked as a mechanic, her mother as a nursing assistant. They'd sacrificed everything to support Naomi's gift. Her younger brother Marcus was 15 and worshipped his big sister. On weekends, the whole family would crowd into their small living room and listen to Naomi practice, her mother sometimes crying with joy at the beauty of the music. And then one February night, during Naomi's senior year at Berkeley, everything ended. Her parents were driving home from her brother's basketball game. The roads were icy. A truck ran a red light. The impact killed them both instantly. Naomi got the call at 11 p.m. while she was practicing for her senior recital. The phone rang. She answered, and in 30 seconds, her entire world collapsed. The grief was unbearable. But there was no time to grieve properly because suddenly Naomi had a 15-year-old brother to take care of. Marcus was devastated, barely functional. Someone had to be the adult. Someone had to pay the bills, keep the house, make sure Marcus ate, and went to school. That someone was Naomi. She took a leave of absence from Berkeley, thinking it would be temporary, just a semester, just until Marcus was stable. But life had other plans. Within 6 months, Naomi met Daniel, a guy who seemed kind at first. She was drowning in grief and responsibility, and he seemed like a lifeline. She got pregnant. And when she told Daniel, he disappeared. Just vanished like he'd never existed. So there she was. 23 years old, pregnant, responsible for a teenage brother, and completely overwhelmed. She tried to go back to Berkeley, but it was impossible. She couldn't afford childcare. She couldn't practice. She couldn't focus. Her scholarship required full-time enrollment and a certain grade point average. She couldn't meet those requirements anymore. So Naomi dropped out. She gave up her scholarship, gave up her dream, gave up everything she'd worked for since she was 4 years old. She found a job cleaning rooms at the Grand Azure because it paid enough to keep a roof over their heads. She had her son Isaiah, and she poured all her love into him. Marcus eventually graduated high school and joined the army, and Naomi was proud of him. But the cost of raising him and having Isaiah meant that Naomi's dreams stayed dead. For 12 years, she didn't touch a piano. Couldn't. It hurt too much. Every time she saw one, every time she heard piano music, it felt like someone was twisting a knife in her heart. This was what her life had become. And most days, she could accept it. She had Isaiah. She had a job. It wasn't the life she'd imagined, but it was a life. Until Catherine Blackwell decided to make her a target. It started 3 weeks before the gala. Catherine Blackwell was in her office on the top floor of the Grand Azure reviewing personnel files. She liked to do this occasionally, not because she cared about her employees, but because she believed in knowing everything about everyone who worked for her. Control was power. Information was control. She pulled up Naomi Wright's file. 34 years old, employed for 8 years, perfect attendance record, no complaints. Boring. Catherine was about to close the file when something caught her eye. Under education, it listed Berklee College of Music attended but did not complete. Catherine's eyebrows rose. Berkeley. That was interesting. She clicked for more information. Found an old resume Naomi had submitted years ago when she first applied. Piano performance major, scholarship recipient, competition winner. Catherine leaned back in her leather chair, a slow smile spreading across her perfectly made-up face. This was delicious. One of her housekeeping staff had been some kind of music student, a failed pianist now scrubbing toilets. Catherine felt a familiar thrill. She loved finding weaknesses in people, loved exploiting them, and she'd just found a very interesting weakness. An idea began to form in her mind. A cruel idea. A humiliating idea. And Catherine Blackwell loved humiliation, especially when it wasn't hers. The Grand Azur was hosting its annual charity gala in 3 weeks. 300 of Boston's wealthiest residents would attend. It was the social event of the season, raising money for various children's charities while allowing the rich to show off their wealth and connections. Catherine always gave a speech, always made sure she was the center of attention. But this year she wanted something special, something memorable, something entertaining. And now she knew exactly what that would be. She called her son Brandon into her office. Brandon, tall and thin with his mother's cold eyes, listened as Catherine explained her idea. His smile matched hers. "Perfect," he said. "Absolutely perfect. Let's make sure everyone knows about it. Make sure it's announced properly so she can't back out." Catherine nodded. This was going to be wonderful. The next morning, Catherine summoned Naomi to her office. Naomi, still in her housekeeping uniform, stood nervously in front of Catherine's massive desk, wondering if she was being fired. Catherine smiled, but it was the kind of smile a snake gives before it strikes. "Naomi," Catherine said, "I've been reviewing your background. I see you attended Berkeley. You studied piano." Naomi's stomach dropped. "Yes, ma'am," she said quietly. "A long time ago." Catherine leaned forward. "We're having a gala in 3 weeks," she said. "A very important event. And I think it would be wonderful to have some live piano music during the cocktail hour. I'd like you to play for us." Naomi felt the blood drain from her face. "Mrs. Blackwell, I haven't played in 12 years. I couldn't possibly." Catherine's smile widened. "Oh, I think you could," she said. "In fact, I insist. Consider it part of your job duties. You do want to keep your job, don't you, Naomi?" The threat was crystal clear. Naomi's hands were shaking. She thought of Isaiah. Thought of their rent, their bills, the life they'd barely managed to build. She couldn't lose this job. There were no other options. She swallowed hard. "Yes, ma'am," she whispered. "I'll play." "Excellent," Catherine said, waving her hand dismissively. "My assistant will give you the details. You're dismissed." Naomi walked out of that office feeling like she was going to be sick. Catherine and Brandon watched her go, then turned to each other and laughed. This was going to be perfect entertainment. The failed pianist forced to perform in her maid's uniform in front of Boston's elite. They could already imagine the whispers, the pitying looks, the awkward applause when she fumbled through some simple piece. Catherine Blackwell had found her evening's amusement, and she couldn't wait. That night, Naomi sat at her kitchen table, with her head in her hands, trying not to cry. Isaiah was already asleep in his room, and the apartment was quiet except for the sound of traffic outside. She'd been commanded to play piano at the gala. In 3 weeks. In front of 300 people. After not touching a piano for 12 years. The thought made her physically ill. It wasn't just that she was rusty. It was that playing piano meant opening a door she'd kept locked for over a decade. It meant touching all that grief, all that loss, all those broken dreams. It meant remembering her parents, remembering who she used to be, remembering everything she'd sacrificed. And she didn't know if she could survive that. But she also couldn't refuse. The job at the Grand Azure was all that stood between her and homelessness. She'd applied to dozens of other positions over the years, but no one wanted to hire a college dropout with an 8-year gap in her resume. This job paid her rent, fed her son, kept them afloat. She couldn't risk it, not even for her sanity. There was something else, too. Something Naomi hadn't told anyone, not even Isaiah. 2 weeks ago, Isaiah had gotten sick. What started as a cold had turned into a severe case of pneumonia. He'd spent 3 days in the hospital, and even though he was home now, he was still weak, still recovering. And the hospital bill had been devastating. Even with her minimal insurance, she owed over $5,000. Money she absolutely did not have. The hospital was willing to work out a payment plan, but she had to make the first payment soon or they'd send it to collections, which meant she needed every penny from this job. Needed the overtime Catherine had vaguely promised if Naomi performed well at the gala. So she was trapped. Completely and utterly trapped. And Catherine Blackwell knew it. The next morning, Naomi did something she hadn't done in 12 years. After she dropped Isaiah at school, instead of going straight to work, she stopped at a small music store in Cambridge. Her hands were sweating as she walked through the door. The store smelled like wood polish and old paper. Pianos of various sizes lined the walls. A young employee asked if she needed help. Naomi shook her head, walking slowly toward a small, upright piano in the corner. She sat down on the bench, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Slowly, so slowly, she reached out and touched the keys. The ivory was smooth and cool under her fingertips. She pressed down on middle C. The note rang out pure and clear, and Naomi felt tears start to stream down her face. She couldn't do this. She couldn't. It hurt too much. All the memories came flooding back at once. Her mother's voice, her father's proud smile, her professor's encouragement, the dreams she'd had, the future she'd lost. It was too much. But she thought of Isaiah, thought of the hospital bill, thought of what would happen if she lost her job. And she forced herself to play a scale. C major, up and down. Her fingers remembered even if they were stiff. She played another scale. Then a simple melody. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. The first song her mother had taught her. By the time she left the store 20 minutes later, her face was soaked with tears, but something had shifted. She could do this. She had to do this. For Isaiah. For their survival. For the next 3 weeks, Naomi's life became a nightmare of exhaustion. She worked her regular shift at the hotel from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. Then she'd pick up Isaiah from after-school care, help him with homework, make dinner, and get him to bed by 8. And then every single night she would leave her sleeping son with her elderly neighbor Mrs. Chen, take the tea back to the Grand Azure, and let herself into the ballroom with the key she'd borrowed from maintenance. And she would practice. The Grand Azure's ballroom contained a beautiful Steinway Grand, the same piano she'd be playing at the gala. Every night from 9 p.m. until midnight, Naomi would sit at that piano and force herself to play. At first, her fingers were stiff and clumsy. She'd start a piece and have to stop frustrated and crying. But slowly, painfully, muscle memory began to return. Her fingers started to remember. The music started to come back. She chose Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven. It was a piece she'd performed dozens of times in her Berkeley days, a piece she could play in her sleep back then. It was also deeply emotional, slow and haunting, full of melancholy. It felt appropriate somehow, a sad piece for a sad situation. Plus, it was familiar enough that she had a chance of pulling it off even after 12 years. She practiced until her fingers ached, until her back hurt from sitting, until her eyes could barely stay open. And then she'd go home sleep for 4 hours and do it all again. Catherine and Brandon didn't know about the practice sessions. They assumed Naomi would just show up and embarrass herself. That was what they were counting on. That was what they wanted. But Naomi was determined that even if this was humiliating, even if this broke her heart, she would at least play competently. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of watching her fail completely. She had that much pride left. But the stress was overwhelming. Isaiah asked why Mommy looked so tired, why her eyes were always red. Naomi lied and said she was just working extra hours. She didn't tell him about the gala, didn't tell him what was going to happen. She couldn't. How could she explain to her 9-year-old son that she'd once been someone special, someone talented, and now she was going to be paraded in front of rich people as a joke? So she kept it to herself. And the weight of it nearly crushed her. As the gala approached, Catherine made sure everyone knew about her special entertainment. She told her wealthy friends. She told board members. She told anyone who would listen that she had a delightful surprise planned for cocktail hour. A real treat, she'd say, with a knowing smile. One of our staff members displaying hidden talents. It was all very mysterious and intriguing, and it ensured that everyone would be paying attention when Naomi sat down at that piano. Brandon helped spread the word, too. He told his friends from Harvard Business School, told his country club buddies, made sure they all knew to arrive early for cocktails so they wouldn't miss the entertainment. Some of them asked what was so special. Brandon would just smirk and say, "Let's just say we're giving someone an opportunity to shine," or fail spectacularly. Either way, it'll be memorable. His friends loved it. They couldn't wait. Meanwhile, Naomi was falling apart. She practiced every night, and yes, Moonlight Sonata was coming back to her. Her fingers remembered the patterns. Her muscle memory was returning. But the emotional toll was devastating. Every time she played, she thought about her parents, about Berkeley, about the life she should have had. She cried through every practice session. Sometimes she had to stop in the middle and just sob her shoulders, shaking her hands pressed against the keys. The worst part was the realization of what she'd lost. Sitting at that piano night after night, Naomi was confronted with the truth. She was still good. Even after 12 years, even rusty, she could feel it. The music still lived in her. The talent hadn't died. It had just been buried. And digging it up was like digging up her own grave. 1 week before the gala, something terrible happened. Isaiah, who'd been recovering slowly from his pneumonia, suddenly got worse. His fever spiked to 104. He was struggling to breathe. Naomi rushed him to the emergency room at 2 a.m, terrified that she was going to lose her son. The doctors got his fever down, pumped him full of antibiotics, and kept him in the hospital for observation. Naomi sat by his bed all night, holding his small hand, praying. Isaiah was everything to her. He was the reason she got up every morning, the reason she kept going, the reason she endured Catherine Blackwell's cruelty and worked a job that exhausted her body and soul. If something happened to him, Naomi wouldn't survive it. She'd already lost so much. She couldn't lose him too. By morning, Isaiah was stable. The doctors said he'd be okay, but he needed to stay in the hospital for a few days. They needed to monitor him, make sure the infection was really gone this time. Naomi called in sick to work, which she never did, and stayed with Isaiah all day. She read to him, held his hand, tried not to let him see how scared she was. That afternoon, her phone rang. It was Catherine Blackwell. Naomi Catherine's cold voice said, "I heard you called in sick. I hope this isn't going to interfere with your performance at the gala." Naomi's hand tightened on the phone. "My son is in the hospital, Mrs. Blackwell. He has pneumonia." Catherine was silent for a moment. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said, though her tone suggested she wasn't sorry at all. "But the gala is in 6 days. I expect you to be there. We have 300 guests expecting a performance. Surely your son will be out of the hospital by then." Naomi wanted to scream, wanted to tell Catherine exactly what she thought of her, but she couldn't. She needed this job more than ever now, because the hospital bill from this stay was going to be even larger. So she swallowed her rage and said, "Yes, ma'am, I'll be there." "Good," Catherine said. "See that you are." And she hung up. Naomi sat there in Isaiah's hospital room, looking at her sleeping son, and felt something shift inside her. She'd been approaching the gala with fear, with shame, with dread. But suddenly, she felt something else. Anger. Pure, burning anger. Catherine Blackwell was a cruel, heartless woman who thought she could humiliate Naomi for her own amusement, who thought Naomi was nothing, nobody, just a maid, just someone to be used and discarded. But Catherine Blackwell didn't know who Naomi really was, didn't know what she was capable of. And maybe Naomi thought it was time to remind the world, time to remind herself. She'd spent 12 years being small, being invisible, being nobody. But she hadn't always been nobody. Once she'd been extraordinary. And maybe, just maybe, she still was. Isaiah woke up and smiled at his mother. "Mama," he said in his small, hoarse voice, "will you sing to me?" Naomi stroked his forehead gently. "Baby," she said, "how about instead of singing, Mama tells you a story about when I was younger, about something I used to do?" Isaiah's eyes lit up. He loved stories. "Okay, Mama," he said. And so Naomi told her son for the first time about who she used to be, about Berkeley, about performing, about her dreams. Isaiah listened with wide eyes, asking question after question. "Mama, you played piano. Why didn't you tell me? Can I hear you play?" Naomi felt tears on her cheeks, but she was smiling. "Soon, baby," she said. "Very soon. I'm going to play at a party. And maybe if you're feeling better, you can come watch. Would you like that?" Isaiah nodded eagerly. "Yes, Mama. I want to see you play. I want to see you be great." That night, after Isaiah fell asleep, Naomi sat in the chair next to his bed and made a decision. She wasn't going to just survive this gala. She wasn't going to just play competently to avoid total humiliation. She was going to play beautifully, brilliantly. She was going to show everyone, especially Catherine Blackwell, exactly who Naomi Wright was. Not for revenge, though, that would be sweet, but for Isaiah, so her son could see that his mother was more than a maid, more than someone to be pushed around and dismissed. She was going to play like the artist she'd once been, like the artist she still was deep down. And she was going to make everyone in that room feel something. Isaiah was released from the hospital 2 days before the gala. He was weak, but improving. Naomi arranged for Mrs. Chen to watch him on the night of the event. She didn't tell Isaiah exactly what was happening, just that Mama had to work a special party. He made her promise to tell him all about it afterward. She promised. The night before the gala, Naomi went to the ballroom one last time to practice. But this time was different. This time, when she sat at the piano, she didn't cry. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. And then she played Moonlight Sonata all the way through without stopping, without faltering. Her fingers knew every note, her heart knew every emotion, And the music that poured out of that piano was haunting beautiful, filled with 12 years of pain and love and survival. When she finished, she sat in silence for a moment. Then she whispered, "This is for you, Mama and Daddy. This is for Isaiah. And this is for me, the girl I used to be, and the woman I still am." She stood up, looked at the piano one last time, and went home. Tomorrow night, everything would change. She could feel it. For better or worse, tomorrow night would be the end of something and the beginning of something else. And Naomi Wright was ready. Meanwhile, Catherine and Brandon were beside themselves with excitement. Catherine had chosen a beautiful designer gown for the event. Brandon had his tuxedo fitted. They'd gone over every detail of the gala multiple times. The guest list was perfect. The menu was exquisite. The decorations were stunning. But what they were most excited about was their special entertainment during cocktail hour. Catherine had told the band leader to stop playing exactly at 7:30 p.m. At that time, she would make an announcement, and then Naomi would play, or try to play, and everyone would watch. Everyone would see. Catherine had even arranged for photographers to be present. Not for Naomi's sake, of course, but because Catherine wanted to document this night. This perfect night when she'd be the center of attention, when her gala would be the talk of Boston society for weeks. The humiliation of a failed pianist Maid was just the cherry on top. It would make the evening memorable, unique. Catherine was certain that years from now, people would still be talking about this gala. About the time Catherine Blackwell had that maid play piano. It was going to be legendary. Brandon had invited all his friends to come early, promised them a show. Some of them were skeptical. "What's so interesting about a maid playing piano?" they asked. Brandon just smiled. "Trust me," he'd say. "You'll want to see this. It's going to be pathetic. And we all know the best entertainment is watching someone fail." His friends laughed and agreed. They'd be there. They wouldn't miss it. Neither Catherine nor Brandon had bothered to check on Naomi. Hadn't asked if she'd been practicing. Hadn't wondered if maybe, just maybe, she might actually be able to play. They'd made assumptions based on her current station in life. She was a maid. She cleaned toilets. She was nothing. Therefore, she would play like nothing. It never occurred to them that they might be wrong, that they might be making a catastrophic mistake. Arrogance is a dangerous thing, and Catherine and Brandon Blackwell were about to learn exactly how dangerous. The night of the gala arrived. The Grand Azure had been transformed into something out of a fairy tale. The ballroom glittered with thousands of tiny white lights. Enormous flower arrangements filled every corner, orchids and roses and lilies in shades of white and cream and pale pink. Round tables covered in silk linens surrounded the dance floor. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. A full bar had been set up in one corner, staffed by tuxedoed bartenders. A string quartet played softly near the entrance. It was breathtaking. It was perfect. It was the kind of event that cost more to produce than most people earned in a year. Guests began arriving at 6:30 p.m. They came in designer gowns and custom tuxedos, dripping with jewelry, reeking of expensive perfume and cologne. These were the elite of Boston society. Old money and new money mingling together. There were real estate developers and tech entrepreneurs, doctors and lawyers, politicians and philanthropists, CEOs and board members. Everyone who was anyone in Boston was here, and they'd all paid $5,000 per ticket for the privilege of attending. Catherine Blackwell stood near the entrance in a stunning silver gown that probably cost more than Naomi's annual salary, greeting guests with a gracious smile. She looked like the Queen of Boston, which was exactly how she saw herself. Brandon stood beside her in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, shaking hands and making small talk. They were in their element. This was their world. And tonight, they were the king and queen of it. By 7 p.m., the ballroom was full. 300 guests mingled and chatted, drinking champagne and eating expensive hors d'oeuvres passed by white-gloved servers. The noise level was rising as conversations overlapped, as laughter echoed off the high ceilings. Everyone was having a wonderful time. The gala was a huge success, and it was about to get even more memorable. Naomi arrived at the hotel at 6:45 p.m., entering through the employee entrance as always. But tonight, instead of going home after her shift, she'd stayed. She was wearing her housekeeping uniform. The same polyester dress she wore every day. The same sensible shoes. Her hair was pulled back in the same simple ponytail. Catherine had made it clear that Naomi was to perform in her uniform. That was part of the humiliation, part of the point, to show everyone that she was staff, that she was beneath them, that this was condescending amusement, not real entertainment. Naomi went to the employee break room and sat down, her hands shaking. She could hear the noise from the ballroom, could hear the laughter and conversation of 300 wealthy people who had no idea she existed. In 30 minutes, she would walk into that room, would sit at that piano, would play for an audience for the first time in 12 years. She felt sick, terrified. But also underneath the fear, there was something else. Determination, resolve, anger. She was done being invisible, done being treated like she was worthless. Tonight, she was going to show them who she really was, and they would never forget it. At 7:25 p.m., Catherine's assistant found Naomi in the break room. "It's time," she said, not unkindly. She'd always been nice to Naomi, unlike the Blackwells. She looked at Naomi with sympathy. "Good luck," she whispered. Naomi nodded, unable to speak. She stood up, smoothed down her uniform, and followed the assistant toward the ballroom. With every step, her heart pounded harder. This was it. There was no turning back now. In a few minutes, she would either triumph or be destroyed. And honestly, she wasn't sure which was going to happen. But she was going to find out. At exactly 7:30 p.m., the string quartet stopped playing. The sudden silence caught everyone's attention. Conversations died down as 300 guests turned toward the stage at the front of the ballroom. Catherine Blackwell glided up the stairs to the small stage, her silver gown shimmering under the lights. She took the microphone and smiled at her guests. "Good evening, everyone," she said, her voice smooth and confident. "I'm so delighted you could all join us tonight for this year's charity gala. As you know, we're raising money for several wonderful children's charities, and your generosity will make such a difference." Catherine paused, letting the guests applaud themselves. "Thank you all. Now, before we sit down to dinner, I have a very special treat for you during cocktail hour. Something I think you'll find quite memorable." She paused again, building suspense. Her smile widened. "You see, I recently discovered that one of our housekeeping staff has a very interesting background. Years ago, she attended the prestigious Berklee College of Music. She studied piano performance." "Isn't that fascinating?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People were intrigued, now curious. Where was Catherine going with this? So Catherine continued. "I thought, what better way to support the arts than to give this young woman an opportunity to share her talent with all of you, a chance to perform for such a distinguished audience. She's been kind enough to agree to play for us during cocktails, so please join me in welcoming Naomi Wright." Catherine's tone was dripping with condescension. The way she said Naomi's name made it clear that this wasn't about giving Naomi an opportunity. This was about entertainment at Naomi's expense. And most of the guests understood that immediately. Catherine gestured toward the side entrance, and Naomi walked in. The moment she appeared, a hush fell over the room. There she was, in her housekeeping uniform, walking toward the stage where that beautiful Steinway grand piano waited. The contrast was stark and intentional. She looked small and out of place among all these wealthy people in their designer clothes. Some guests looked curious, some looked amused, some looked uncomfortable, sensing the cruelty of what was happening. Naomi walked up the stairs to the stage, her legs somehow still working, even though she felt like she might collapse at any moment. She didn't look at Catherine as she passed her. Didn't look at Brandon standing near the stage with his friends, all of them smirking. She walked directly to the piano and sat down on the bench. Her hands were trembling visibly. The entire ballroom was silent now, 300 pairs of eyes watching her. Catherine spoke into the microphone again. Naomi will be playing Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven. A lovely choice. I'm sure we're all eager to hear it. She said it in a way that made it clear she expected this to be a disaster. Then Catherine stepped away from the microphone and joined Brandon and their friends at a table right near the stage. They wanted front row seats for the humiliation. They couldn't wait. Naomi sat at the piano, staring at the keys. This was the moment. The moment she'd been dreading for 3 weeks. The moment that could destroy her or define her. She thought about Isaiah, lying in his hospital bed, telling her he wanted to see her be great. She thought about her parents who had believed in her so completely. She thought about her younger self, that girl who'd dreamed of playing in concert halls, who'd practiced until her fingers bled, who'd believed she could do anything. And she thought about Catherine Blackwell, sitting there with her cruel smile, expecting Naomi to fail, expecting Naomi to be nothing. Nobody. Just a maid who'd once had dreams. Naomi closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Then she reached out and placed her hands on the keys. The ivory was cool under her fingertips. Familiar. Right. She opened her eyes, and she began to play. The first notes of Moonlight Sonata floated out into the ballroom, soft and haunting. Immediately, people stopped whispering, stopped moving. Because even from those first notes, it was clear. This wasn't going to be a disaster. This wasn't going to be amusing. This was something else entirely. Naomi's fingers moved across the keys with a grace and certainty that stunned everyone watching. This woman in her maid's uniform was playing like a concert pianist. No more than that. She was playing like an artist, like someone pouring their entire soul into the music. The Moonlight Sonata is a difficult piece, technically demanding and emotionally complex. It requires not just skill, but feeling. And Naomi had both. Her hands flew across the keys, finding every note perfectly. But it was more than just hitting the right notes. It was the way she played them. The way she brought out the melody, the way she built the emotional intensity, the way she made that piano sing. Within 30 seconds, the entire ballroom was mesmerized. Catherine's smile had frozen on her face. She glanced at Brandon, who looked equally stunned. This wasn't what was supposed to happen. Naomi was supposed to stumble through the piece, to play poorly, to embarrass herself. But this was extraordinary. Catherine felt the first stirring of unease, of fear, because everyone in this room was watching Naomi now, and what they were seeing wasn't a maid playing piano. They were seeing an artist, a real, genuine artist. And Catherine realized too late that she'd made a terrible mistake. Naomi was lost in this music now. Everything else fell away. The fear, the shame, the anger, all of it dissolved as her fingers found the familiar patterns of Beethoven's masterpiece. This piece, Moonlight Sonata, had always been special to her. It was one of the first advanced pieces she'd learned. She'd played it at her high school graduation. She'd played it at her Berkeley audition. And now 12 years later, she was playing it again. But this time it meant something different. The first movement was slow and melancholic, filled with a gentle sadness. As Naomi played, she thought about everything she'd lost. Her parents, her dreams, the life she'd imagined. Every note carried that grief, that longing for what could have been. The audience could feel it, could hear it in the music. Several women in the crowd had tears forming in their eyes. This wasn't just technically good. This was emotionally devastating. This was real. The second movement was faster, more agitated. Naomi's fingers flew across the keys, now the music urgent and passionate. She thought about the struggle of the last 12 years, the exhaustion of working endless hours, the fear of not being able to provide for Isaiah, the shame of being treated as less than human by people like Catherine Blackwell. All of that went into the music, giving it a raw intensity that had everyone in the ballroom holding their breath. And then came the third movement. Fast, furious, technically brilliant. This was where Naomi could show what she was truly capable of. Her fingers were a blur on the keys, executing runs and trills that made even the professional musicians in the crowd gasp in admiration. But it wasn't just about speed or technical prowess. It was about the emotion behind it, the defiance, the strength, the refusal to be broken. Naomi played with a power and passion that made the piano seem alive, like it was singing, shouting, crying all at once. The music built and built, reaching toward the climax. The entire ballroom was silent, except for the piano. No one was drinking. No one was whispering. No one was moving. 300 people stood or sat completely still, captivated by the woman at the piano. Some of them had tears streaming down their faces. Some of them had goosebumps on their arms. All of them knew they were witnessing something extraordinary, something they would talk about for the rest of their lives. Catherine Blackwell stood frozen, her face pale. This wasn't funny anymore. This wasn't entertaining. This was horrifying. Because every person in this room was watching Naomi with respect, with admiration, with awe. And they were looking at Catherine with something else: confusion, disgust, pity. How could Catherine have thought this woman was nothing? How could she have tried to humiliate someone this talented? What kind of person does that? Catherine could see the questions in people's eyes, could see her carefully constructed image starting to crack. Brandon was equally stunned. He'd told his friends this would be pathetic, amusing, worth mocking. And now those same friends were watching Naomi with their mouths open, completely blown away by what they were hearing. One of them leaned over to Brandon and whispered, "Dude, she's incredible." "Why the hell is she working as a maid?" Brandon had no answer. He felt sick. He'd been so sure this would be funny. Now it just felt cruel, and everyone knew it. Naomi reached the final section of the piece. Her hands were moving so fast they were almost invisible. The music was building to its crescendo, louder and more intense with every measure. She thought about Isaiah, about her parents watching from wherever they were, about proving to herself that she was still who she'd always been deep down. An artist, a musician, someone with value and worth, and something to offer the world. And she played those final measures with everything she had, every ounce of strength and passion and soul. The last note rang out, hanging in the air for a long, perfect moment, and then silence, complete, absolute silence. Naomi sat at the piano, her hands still on the keys, her chest heaving as she tried to catch her breath. She'd given everything to that performance. Everything. She felt emptied out, exhausted, but also for the first time in 12 years, she felt whole. She'd done it. She'd really done it. She'd played like she used to. Maybe even better than she used to, because now she had 12 years of pain and loss and survival to pour into the music. And it had been beautiful. The silence stretched on for what felt like forever, but was probably only a few seconds. Naomi slowly lifted her hands from the keys. And then from the back of the ballroom, someone started clapping. Slowly at first, then faster. And then someone else joined in. And someone else. Within seconds, the entire ballroom erupted in thunderous applause. People weren't just clapping. They were on their feet. A standing ovation. 300 of Boston's wealthiest and most influential people standing and applauding a hotel maid in a polyester uniform who had just played the most beautiful piano solo they'd ever heard. The applause went on and on. Naomi sat at the piano, stunned. She hadn't expected this. Hadn't expected them to react like this. She'd thought maybe they'd clap politely, and then forget about it. But this was overwhelming. She could see people wiping tears from their eyes, could see them smiling at her with genuine warmth and respect, could see them looking at her like she was someone important, someone who mattered. And then from somewhere in the middle of the crowd, an elderly man in a tuxedo made his way toward the stage. He was in his 70s, with white hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He walked slowly, but with purpose, and the crowd parted to let him through. He climbed the stairs to the stage, and Naomi looked at him in confusion. She didn't recognize him at first, but then he smiled, and suddenly she did. Her hand flew to her mouth. Professor Marshall, her piano professor from Berkeley, the man who'd taught her for 3 years, who'd believed in her, who'd cried when she'd had to leave. Naomi, Professor Marshall, said, his voice shaking with emotion. He took her hands in his. I knew it was you the moment you started playing. I'd know you're playing anywhere. He turned to face the crowd, still holding one of Naomi's hands. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice carrying across the ballroom. I need to tell you something about this young woman. His voice was strong now, clear and firm. 15 years ago, Naomi Wright was the most talented student I had in 40 years of teaching at Berklee College of Music. She wasn't just good, she was extraordinary. A once-in-a-generation talent. The crowd murmured, people looking at each other in surprise. Professor Marshall continued. At age 20, Naomi won the New England piano competition, beating out conservatory students from across the region. At 21, she was invited to perform at Symphony Hall. At 22, she was being courted by talent agencies who wanted to represent her. She could have had any career she wanted, any opportunity. She was destined to be one of the great pianists of her generation. He paused, looking at Naomi with such warmth and pride that she felt tears streaming down her face. I lost track of her 12 years ago, when she had to leave Berkeley due to family tragedy. He turned back to the crowd. I never thought I'd hear her play again, but tonight I did. And she's not just as good as she was, she's better. What you just heard wasn't the playing of an amateur or a hobbyist. That was the playing of a master artist, one of the finest pianists I've ever had the privilege of teaching. The applause started again, even louder this time, but Professor Marshall held up his hand. There's more you should know, he said. He looked directly at Catherine Blackwell now, and his expression hardened. This woman has been working as a housekeeper apparently for years, and I don't know what circumstances led to that. But what I do know is that someone with this much talent, with this much to offer the world, should never have been hidden away, cleaning hotel rooms. That's not just a waste of her gifts, it's a tragedy. And whoever employed her without recognizing her value, whoever treated her as anything less than the extraordinary artist she is, should be ashamed. The crowd turned to look at Catherine. Catherine's face was white. She felt 300 pairs of eyes on her, judging her. She'd done this. She'd known about Naomi's background and had tried to use it to humiliate her, had treated this incredible artist like a joke, like nothing. And now everyone knew. Everyone could see what kind of person Catherine really was. Cruel, small, petty. The respect she'd spent decades building, the reputation she'd carefully cultivated, was crumbling in real time. Brandon wanted to disappear. His friends were all staring at him, disgust written on their faces. One of them whispered, "This is what you thought would be funny. Mocking someone this talented. What's wrong with you?" Brandon had no answer. He felt sick, ashamed. He'd been so sure that Naomi was nobody, that people like her didn't matter, and he'd been so catastrophically wrong. Professor Marshall turned back to Naomi. He pulled a business card from his pocket and pressed it into her hand. "Call me," he said quietly. "We need to talk about your future. Because this," he gestured around the ballroom, "this is not where you belong. You belong on concert stages, in recording studios, teaching the next generation. You have too much talent to waste another day of it." Naomi could only nod, too overwhelmed to speak. Professor Marshall stepped back and the applause started again. But this time, it was different. It wasn't just polite or impressed. It was thunderous, enthusiastic, genuine. People were cheering now, shouting, "Bravo, magnificent, extraordinary." Naomi stood at the piano, tears streaming down her face, unable to process what was happening. She'd expected humiliation. She'd gotten vindication. She'd expected to be mocked. Instead, she was being celebrated. People began approaching the stage. A woman in a stunning emerald gown was first. She introduced herself as Patricia Hamilton, director of the Boston Arts Foundation. "We fund emerging artists," she said, pressing her card into Naomi's hand. "I want to talk to you about a grant, a full grant to help you restart your career. Please call me." Naomi took the card with shaking hands. A man in his 50s was next. "Richard Chen," he said. "I run the community music school in Cambridge. We need piano teachers desperately, especially ones with your level of training and talent. The pay is good, and we offer health insurance. Are you interested?" Naomi could barely speak. "Yes," she whispered. "I'm interested." He smiled. "Excellent. Call me Monday." More people came. A woman from the Boston Symphony Orchestra, a representative from a recording studio, a wealthy patron who wanted to commission a private performance for her daughter's wedding, a talent agent who'd seen Professor Marshall's reaction and wanted to discuss representation. One after another, people approached Naomi with opportunities, with respect, with recognition of her worth. Catherine Blackwell stood at her table, frozen. This was supposed to be her night, her gala, her moment. And instead, everyone was focused on Naomi. Everyone was treating Naomi like she was the important one. Catherine felt humiliation burning in her chest, ironic, considering she'd intended to humiliate Naomi. She caught the eye of one of her friends, a woman she'd known for 20 years. The woman looked at her with such disappointment and disgust that Catherine had to look away. Someone tapped Catherine on the shoulder. She turned to find Elizabeth Montgomery, one of the wealthiest philanthropists in Boston, and a major donor to Catherine's charities. Elizabeth's face was cold. "Catherine," she said quietly, "I think we need to have a conversation about how you treat your employees, and about whether I want to continue supporting your causes." Catherine felt panic rising in her throat. "Elizabeth," she started, but Elizabeth held up a hand. "Not here," she said. "We'll talk later. But I want you to know what you did tonight was cruel and unacceptable, and a lot of people are going to remember it." She walked away, and Catherine knew with absolute certainty that her reputation was destroyed. This would follow her forever. Brandon was having a similar experience. His friends were looking at him like they didn't know him. One of them, James, who'd been his roommate at Harvard, shook his head. "That was really messed up, man," he said. "I mean really messed up." "What were you thinking?" Brandon had no answer. He'd been thinking that Naomi was nobody, that people in her position didn't matter, and he'd been wrong, so completely, utterly wrong, and now everyone knew what kind of person he really was. Meanwhile, Naomi was surrounded by people. She was answering questions, accepting business cards, trying to process everything that was happening. A reporter from the Boston Globe approached. "This is going to be a story," he said. "The hotel maid who turned out to be a piano virtuoso. It's incredible. Would you be willing to do an interview?" Naomi nodded, still in shock. "Sure," she said. Why not? Her life had just completely changed in the span of 20 minutes. What was one more impossible thing? Eventually, the crowd around Naomi dispersed somewhat as people returned to their tables. Dinner was supposed to be served, though the energy in the room had completely shifted. Instead of talking about charity or themselves, everyone was talking about Naomi, about her performance, about how incredible she was, about how terrible Catherine Blackwell had been to try to humiliate her. Catherine knew she had to do something, had to salvage this somehow. She walked toward the stage, her heels clicking on the floor. Brandon followed reluctantly. Naomi saw them coming and felt her stomach tighten. But she wasn't afraid anymore. Not after what had just happened. She stood tall and waited. Catherine reached the stage and climbed the stairs. Up close, Naomi could see that Catherine's carefully applied makeup couldn't quite hide the rage and humiliation in her eyes. "Naomi," Catherine said, her voice tight. "That was quite a performance." Naomi didn't respond. Just waited. Catherine glanced around, aware that people were watching. She forced a smile. "I had no idea you were so talented," she said loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "If I'd known, I certainly would have treated you differently." It was a lie. A transparent, obvious lie, and everyone knew it. Professor Marshall, who was still nearby, spoke up. "You knew she attended Berkeley," he said. "You knew she studied piano performance. That was enough to know she had talent." Catherine's face flushed. "I thought she started," but Professor Marshall interrupted. "You thought you could humiliate her for your own entertainment," he said bluntly. "You thought she was beneath you. You were wrong. And now everyone here knows exactly what kind of person you are." There was a murmur of agreement from the people nearby. Catherine looked around wildly, seeing judgment in every face. She turned back to Naomi. "I apologize," she said stiffly. "If I offended you." It was the most insincere apology Naomi had ever heard. If she offended her, there was no if about it. But Naomi didn't need Catherine's apology, didn't need her acknowledgement. She had something better. She had 300 witnesses who'd just seen her talent, who'd just seen Catherine's cruelty. The truth was out now, and no forced apology could change it. "Thank you, Mrs. Blackwell," Naomi said quietly. "But I don't think I'll be needing your apology, or your employment. I quit." The words came out strong and clear. She hadn't planned to say them, but the moment they left her mouth, she knew they were right. She was done with this place, done with being treated as less than, done with letting fear control her life. "I'll collect my final paycheck on Monday," Naomi continued, "and I won't be returning after that." She looked Catherine directly in the eye. "I hope you find someone else to clean your rooms, because I have better things to do with my life." The people nearby burst into applause. Someone shouted, "Good for you!" Catherine's face was crimson now. She opened her mouth, closed. It opened it again. She had no idea what to say. She'd been completely outmaneuvered, humiliated in front of everyone she knew, and there was nothing she could do about it. She turned and walked away, Brandon trailing behind her. They left their own gala early, unable to face the whispers and the looks. It was the most humiliating night of Catherine Blackwell's life. And unlike Naomi's humiliation, which had transformed into triumph, Catherine's would last. This would follow her forever. The gala continued, but Catherine and Brandon's absence was barely noticed. Everyone was too busy talking about Naomi, about her playing, about the opportunities being offered to her, about the fairy tale quality of the whole evening. A maid who turned out to be a princess, an underdog who defeated the villain. It was the kind of story people loved, the kind of story that gave everyone hope. Patricia Hamilton from the Boston Arts Foundation pulled Naomi aside before she left. "I meant what I said about the grant," she told Naomi. "We have an emerging artist fund specifically designed for people in your situation. People with incredible talent who need financial support to rebuild their careers. The grant is $50,000. It's yours if you want it." Naomi felt like her knees might give out. $50,000? That would pay off Isaiah's medical bills, pay their rent for a year, give her time to figure out her next steps. "Are you serious?" she asked. "Completely serious," Patricia said. "You're exactly the kind of artist we exist to support. I'll have my assistant contact you Monday with the paperwork. Richard Chen from the Community Music School also confirmed his offer. We have an opening for a piano instructor starting next month," he said. "The position pays $60,000 a year, plus full health insurance and retirement benefits. We're a small school, but we serve low-income kids in Cambridge, kids who deserve to learn from someone as talented as you, someone who understands struggle, someone who can inspire them." Naomi felt tears starting again. "That sounds perfect," she said. "Really perfect." Over the course of the next hour, Naomi received 5 more firm job offers, 3 requests for private performances, 2 inquiries about recording opportunities, and countless expressions of admiration and support. By the time she finally left the hotel at 11 p.m., her pockets were full of business cards, and her head was spinning. Her life had completely changed in one evening. The future that had seemed so bleak and limited just hours ago was now full of possibilities, of hope, of second chances. She called Mrs. Chen to check on Isaiah. He'd been asleep for hours, Mrs. Chen said, and hadn't woken once. "He's doing so well, dear." "How was your party?" Naomi started to laugh, and then started to cry. "It was good," she said. "Really, really good. I'll tell you all about it when I get home." She hung up and stood outside the Grand Azure for a moment, looking up at the building where she'd spent 8 years being invisible, being nobody. She wouldn't miss it, not even a little bit. The next morning, Naomi woke up in her small apartment feeling like she'd dreamed the entire previous night. But her pockets were still full of business cards. Her phone had 7 voicemail messages from people who'd gotten her number somehow, all offering opportunities. And there was an email from Professor Marshall. "Naomi," he'd written, "I can't tell you how happy I am to have found you again. I always wondered what happened to you. Always hoped you were okay. Now I know you're more than okay. You're still brilliant. Please call me. We have so much to discuss. Your career isn't over. In many ways, it's just beginning." Naomi went into Isaiah's room. He was awake, sitting up in bed, looking much better than he had in weeks. "Morning, Mama," he said. "Did you have fun at your party?" Naomi sat on his bed and took his hand. "Baby," she said, "Mama has something to tell you. I used to be a piano player, a really good one. And last night I played piano for a lot of people. And something amazing happened." Isaiah's eyes went wide. What happened? Mama Naomi told him everything. about Catherine trying to humiliate her, about playing Moonlight Sonata, about Professor Marshall recognizing her, about all the opportunities that had come from it, about quitting her job at the hotel. Isaiah listened with his mouth open. "Mama," he said when she finished, "you're famous." Naomi laughed. "I'm not famous, baby. But I might be okay. Better than okay. We might be okay." Isaiah threw his arms around her. "I knew you were special, Mama," he said. "I always knew." Over the next few weeks, Naomi's life transformed completely. She accepted the grant from the Boston Arts Foundation. She took the teaching position at the community music school and discovered that she loved teaching, loved seeing kids light up when they learned something new. She started taking private students as well, and between the teaching job and the private lessons, she was making more money than she'd ever made in her life. Good money. Stable money. Money that meant she didn't have to worry about rent, or bills, or medical expenses. She paid off all of Isaiah's hospital bills. She moved them out of their tiny apartment in Dorchester into a small but nice 2-bedroom in Jamaica Plain. And she bought something she never thought she'd own again: a piano. Not a Steinway grand that would come later maybe, but a beautiful upright that fit perfectly in their new living room. The day it was delivered, Naomi and Isaiah sat side by side on the bench, and she taught him his first piano lesson. "Middle C," she said, pressing the key. "This is where everything starts." Isaiah pressed the key, and the note rang out clear and true. "Mama," he said, "will you teach me to play like you?" Naomi hugged him tight. "I'll teach you everything I know," she said. Everything. The story of Naomi Wright's performance at the charity gala spread far beyond that ballroom. The Boston Globe ran a feature article about her. Local TV news picked it up. Within a month, Naomi was something of a local celebrity. People recognized her on the street. Students at the music school looked at her with awe. She received invitations to perform at events all over Boston. She said yes to some and no to others, learning that she could set boundaries now, that she had power now, that she mattered. 6 months after that night, Naomi was invited to perform at Symphony Hall as part of a benefit concert for music education. She played Moonlight Sonata again for an audience of 2,000 people. Isaiah sat in the front row, wearing his best clothes, watching his mother with pride. When she finished, the standing ovation lasted 5 full minutes. Afterward, reporters asked her about that night at the Grand Azure. "How did it feel to go from being humiliated to being celebrated?" one reporter asked. Naomi thought for a moment before answering. "You know," she said, "I don't think of it as humiliation anymore." Yes, Catherine Blackwell intended to humiliate me. But what actually happened was that she gave me an opportunity to remember who I was, to show the world what I could do, to reclaim my identity as an artist. She paused. Sometimes the things that are meant to destroy us actually save us. Sometimes the worst moments become turning points. That night was supposed to be my lowest point. Instead, it became my resurrection. As for Catherine Blackwell, the consequences of that night followed her for years. Several major donors pulled their support from her charities. Her reputation in Boston society never fully recovered. Some people forgave her eventually, but many didn't. She'd shown her true colors that night, and people remembered. Brandon, to his credit, seemed to learn something from the experience. He quietly donated a large sum to the community music school where Naomi taught, and wrote Naomi a private letter apologizing sincerely for his behavior. Naomi appreciated the gesture, though she never responded. Some wounds don't require acknowledgement to heal. The lesson of Naomi's story spread far beyond Boston. It became the kind of story people told each other when they needed hope, when they felt invisible. when they felt like their dreams were dead. Because Naomi's story proved something important. That talent doesn't disappear just because circumstances force us to set it aside. That worth doesn't diminish just because others can't see it. That it's never too late for a second chance. That the person cleaning your hotel room might be extraordinary. That the woman serving your coffee might be brilliant. That everyone, absolutely everyone, has value and deserves respect. Not because of their job or their circumstances, but because they're human. Naomi never forgot where she came from. Never forgot those 8 years of cleaning hotel rooms, of struggling to survive, of being invisible. She used those memories to fuel her teaching, to connect with her students, especially the ones from difficult circumstances. She taught them that setbacks don't define you, that struggling doesn't make you less than, that your value as a person isn't determined by your bank account or your job title or what other people think of you. It's determined by who you are inside, by your character, by your resilience, by your refusal to give up on yourself, even when everyone else has. And every time Naomi sat down at a piano to play, whether in a concert hall or her living room or a classroom, she thought about that night when she'd been terrified, that night when she'd been meant to be destroyed, that night when instead she'd been reborn, that night when a billionaire's cruelty had backfired so completely that it had changed everything. And she smiled, because that night had taught her the most important lesson of all, that you can't keep a true artist down, that talent will always find a way to shine through, and that sometimes the people who try to humiliate you end up giving you the greatest gift of all, the gift of remembering who you really are. If you enjoyed this story of redemption and second chances, please consider subscribing to hear more incredible true stories of people who overcame impossible odds. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to reclaim your dreams. And remember, the next time you encounter someone in a service job, in a difficult situation, struggling to get by, remember Naomi. Remember that you have no idea what talents they possess, what dreams they've had to set aside, what extraordinary things they're capable of. Treat everyone with respect, with dignity, with kindness, because you never know when you might be standing in front of someone extraordinary. Thank you for watching.